Hi and welcome to Sub-10 Systems Summer University. Today we're talking about the importance of lightning protection and when to use it. We're going to cover a little bit about regulations. We're going to go into our products and how to install them with the lightning protection unit. We're going to talk about our lightning protection unit and what's involved with installing it. And we're going to give general advice as well. First of all, unfortunately, I'm going to start off with a disclaimer. Basically, Sub-10 Systems takes no responsibility for the results of lightning damage, even if all the guidance is followed. Basically, this is because lightning is particularly unpredictable and can affect equipment in many different ways. And it's very, very difficult to predict, so we can't ever give 100% protection or guarantee 100% protection. These regulations are BS regulations, the British Standards regulations. Every country has its own set of guidelines. Obviously, in different parts of the world, hazards due to lightning strikes can increase. So, for example, in Central Africa, it's very, very high amount of lightning strikes. So maybe the systems used there, the approach is different. So, for the BS standards, the first, the BSEN 62305-1, the general principles basically cover the points for creating an effective protection system on a building. And it's quite good information to read and will give you an idea of how to take a correct approach. The -2 is risk management, basically. So wider considerations such as danger to life or loss of data as a consequence of loss of service. So if there is an outage, the consequences of what can happen. Section 3 is about physical damage, partially to buildings, but also it gives you a very good detailed engineering approach to creating an effective lightning protection system. And section 4 is to do with electrical and electronic systems within the structure. So how to protect internally. So whether this is lightning surge suppression through your main system or a UPS or whatever. Then so this gives you outlines some of the things that you may need to do. So while we're on the subject of mains, Sub-10 don't supply a main surge suppression system. So on the mains feed into our equipment, we just have a typical 240 or 110 PoE or 48 volt supply socket. In all cases, this is not protected. So we would recommend that either the building or the comms room or the device has protection. This may just be a UPS device. So we have a range of millimeter wave products. To start with, we'll talk about the 80 gig product, the Liberator E1000. So this operates on effectively 2 channels, an up and down link. It's got the center frequencies exist between 71 and 76 gigahertz and 81 and 86 gigs. Throughput of the system is 1.15 gigabits per second, with ranges of up to 5,000 meters. So our interfaces are copper to start with, so we have 2 gigi copper interfaces, and we also have an optical interface. And since we're talking about lightning protection today, it's worth mentioning that obviously optical interfaces aren't, and optical cables aren't affected by lightning because they have no conductors in them. So it is possible to install this system just by powering the ODU and then running a an optical cable and not using the Ethernet, which helps to protect any equipment in the building. So this system has a range of two types of antenna, 65 centimeter and 35 centimeter, and is capable of 1+1 redundancy, which means that it can shunt data to another device, another path, within about 20 milliseconds to keep the link up and running. So in the event of an outage, for example, a close lightning strike where some equipment is damaged, then it can actually pass data, if it's still operational, to another path. The system has surge suppression built in, so there's no need for an external LPU to protect the cable. However, it does rely on the fact that you have it all earthed correctly. Our 60 gig products are the V-band products. So at the moment, the V1000, the V320, and V100. This system does not have lightning protection or surge suppression of any type. At the moment, for the general, so the system comes with an earthing cable. So generally, it is earthed. It does come with some earthing protection, but you need the additional optional extra LPU kit for any of these products. So you can see globally that lightning strikes are very, very common. They tend to center in the middle of Africa as the highest peak of strikes. So more than 70 strikes per kilometer in some parts of Africa, and that's really, really high level. Various parts of the US as well suffer a lot from lightning, and so does northern Australia and areas around Hong Kong and this type of thing. So it's worth considering the area that you're deploying into, and then looking at the local advice on lightning protection. Obviously, buildings in parts of the world that are struck a lot have much more efficient lightning protection systems. So typically, safe zones for installation are called protected zones, and this zone is determined by the rolling sphere approach. So effectively, we have this imaginary rolling sphere of 45 meters, which you would roll around the outside of the building, and where the surface of the sphere doesn't actually touch, you're left with a protected zone, and you can see those protected zones outlined in blue on the diagram. On this building, you can see that we have a mast, and we also have lightning funnels. So it's creating a reasonable protected area, and you can see how antennas could be installed on the mast with less risk than they would be if there was no protection at all. Now, everything installed within the protected zone still needs to have lightning protection. Obviously, the top of that mast or the lightning funnels are going to get struck, so that building will be struck. So you still need surge suppression in place. Simply, it means that it's less likely to get a direct strike. In the case where we have multiple buildings, you can get quite large areas of protection. So where a building is very low and well out of reach of lightning, it may be the case that you don't need to use lightning protection to the same degree. Obviously, when you're in an exposed area, then it's absolutely critical that you protect as much as you can. In the case of this example, where there's no infrastructure on rooftops at all, you can see that the risk from a lightning strike is massive. So all of those areas are dangerous areas, and anything mounted on the roof will be higher than the surrounding buildings. So it's important that everything is protected. Normally, and I say normally because sometimes you do find buildings without lightning protection, but normally in most modern cities, lightning protection is on all rooftops, and it's part of the building standards. So you should see something. So when you're installing or surveying on a rooftop, there are some things that you should look out for. So primarily earthing points, really. So if you're surveying, you should keep an eye out for basically the list here, the 5 items on the list. So fennels, so lightning fennels connected to an earthed lightning protected system. So normally you'll have a band that runs around the parapet wall of the building. And this will be crossed with a matrix of earthing strips every few meters. And those earthing strips will then, at certain points, go all the way down the outside of the building to the ground and earth directly into the ground. And there'll be a buried copper rod, which will be several meters long to provide the correct impedance to ground. Subten has a recommended LPU system. So basically, the kit is designed for Gigabit Ethernet, and it's installed behind the back of the ODU. It's IP67 rated and comes with its own earthing cable and nuts and bolts and mast mounting kit. In the kit that we supplied 2 of these. Normally one would be mounted behind the ODU and one is mounted at the building entry point. There's some good diagrams. To purchase the kit from Subten or a partner, you would use part number S10000133. So the kit basically comes with a multitude of fixings and is designed to replace our outdoor seal kit, which comes with the radio. So if you've not purchased a V-band radio before, then each ODU comes with an outdoor sealant kit, which allows you just to connect a drop cable to go down to your comms room and your PoE supply. We recommend that the LPU is installed directly behind the ODU to keep the distance and the cables as short as possible. So the ODU has a 1 meter LAN cable factory fitted, and just by the way, you should never disconnect this cable from the ODU because it is factory sealed, and we actually do an IP67 test on the ODU with that cable fitted, which means that we submerge the whole unit underwater and then we put compressed air down the cable to make sure that there's no leaks. So no need to use self-amalgamating tape on that connection or waterproof it. It's already very watertight. Anyways, that cable is the 1 meter tail cable from the ODU fits directly into the LPU unit with an RJ45 connection. And then the RJ45 on the left-hand side then goes down to your comms room. That's your drop cable away from the ODU and feed to the PoE device. At the building entry point, it will go through another identical LPU box, and it should be earthed in a similar way. And just as a note in this picture, in reality, the ODU will also be earthed to the same earthing point that you can see there in the picture. So this diagram shows in much more detail how we would actually electrically cable the system. So here you can see the earthing cable running from the back of the ODU to the LPU, and then from the LPU to the pole. So the pole should be also earthed, and everything else should be earthed onto a common building earth, which I explained earlier, the lattice type building earth system, which you should commonly find on rooftops. So with the ODU, we supply a 600mm earthing cable, and you shouldn't use any lengths much longer than that if you can help it. Always use the supplied earthing cables, never use a cable to extend that. There is a reason why we keep lengths short, and that's because through electrical induction we can actually get about 1,000 volts per meter of inductive voltage from even a close lightning strike. So static in the air will induct onto the cable, and that creates a hazard of its own, really. And as you probably realise, that could also damage equipment quite easily. So the more often it's dissipated, the less voltage build-up we get. So on the right-hand side, you can see an extended view of the diagram. And you can see also the drop cable coming down the side of a wall or structure. And it's going into the LPU, which is earthed, and then out again, and then directly into the building through a gland. So at this point, at the building entry point, the cable should be kept as short as possible. So its exposure to the outside world should be as minimal as it can be. And then this cable then runs into the PoE, which powers the system, and the output of the PoE then goes to your network router or switch or device of any type. On the main side there to the bottom right, you can see that it's also earthed. That's onto the mains earth system. And then at this point, that mains connection could go into a UPS of some sort to provide surge protection from the other direction. So really the conclusion is that lightning protection is clearly a very important part of installing a sub-10 product. A full risk assessment should be carried out of each installation, and the guidelines should be followed. By protecting your equipment, you're protecting your investment and customers from either an outage or a costly reinstallation of equipment. So our website can be found at www.sub10systems.com. You can find information on all of our product ranges, plus when the next webinars will be available, when we're running training events and the trade shows that we're visiting. To follow us in more detail, you can find out more from Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn and YouTube. Facebook is quite regularly updated, as is LinkedIn, and YouTube has a nice selection of how-to videos and recordings of things that we're up to. Thank you very much for watching. Please remember to visit us at sub10systems.com, or if you're a reseller or partner, you can log into the support.sub10systems.com website. We hope to hear from you very soon. Thank you very much.